How to need as little healthcare as possible? In this video, I'm going to talk about the three most important things you want to avoid so you can live a long, happy, healthy life. And then we're going to talk about some of the ways to put you in charge of your life and your health rather than just relying on everyday wisdom instead of real science. Especially since I watched a podcast this morning and it blew my mind about protein and your longevity. What are the three big things that you want to avoid? Sarcopenia. That's muscle wasting away, loss of muscle. It naturally happens as we age, we lose muscle over time, just naturally. The second thing is osteoporosis. We lose bone over time because in part we lose muscle. And it's especially dangerous for women because they can break a hip and fall or fall and break a hip. Both those happen. And once they do that, pretty much they're toast. So we want to avoid that as well. And the third thing is dementia. Because as we age, the brain can go through really radically bad changes and we can get dementia. Now, some of that is irreversible for some genetic conditions that people have, but for the most part, we can offset dementia with the right behaviors earlier in life. There are a couple of things you can do to avoid all three, but let's talk about the most important one that I saw in the video this morning. It was about protein. There's a lot of myths about how much protein you need, what kind of protein you need, and so forth. Well, I'm just going to give you the real simple version of this. So the USRDA, recommended daily allowance, says you need 0.8 grams for every 2.2 pounds or 1 kilogram. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you add it up, it becomes a lot more. So what does that mean? I'm approximately 200 pounds. That means I'm about 90 kilos. That means I would get 0.8 grams. So you do the math yourself, but that's not very much, right? However, if you go up to 1.2 grams, which is the recommended for weightlifting and building muscle, then you can stop and reverse some of the sarcopenia, the loss of muscle in your body. Now, there's a couple of myths here. One is that you can't gain muscle as you grow older. That's just life. You get older, you get weak. Not true at all. I knew this from an early age because I used to watch reruns on TV when I watched TV as a kid of this guy named Jack LaLanne. And Jack LaLanne was one of the first muscle guys, the first workout coaches in the world. And he was from, I think, one of the beaches, Malibu Beach or something like that down in California. And he would get out there and he'd work out and he was suntanned, he was buff, he had been in World War II, super cool guy, very positive mindset. Anyway, he lived into his 90s and he was working out in the gym and he had big muscles all the way into his 90s. Why? Because he ate a lot of protein, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, and he worked out like a fiend in the gym. Now, you may not have time to work out like a fiend in the gym. So what can you do? Turns out, if you increase your protein to 1.6 grams per every 2.2 pounds or every kilogram, that you have 10% more muscle growth and retains muscle and strength 10% more. So you can offset it by having a higher amount of protein. So that's a little bit of a solution for you. Yes, you need to work out in the gym. Yes, you need to lift weights. Yes, you need to move your body to offset sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass, but you can do it. And you can even start today. Let's say you're 65 years old and you're watching this video. You can go out today, talk to your doctor, of course, get a weight coach in the gym, go to like one of the big popular gyms or a smaller gym, doesn't matter, and say, look, I'm this age. Here's what I've talked to my doctor about, my conditions, my situations. I want to gain muscle mass and strength. And they'll teach you how to do that because you can do it. I've gained weight. I've gained like 20 pounds of muscle in the past couple of years, in part because of working out so much and eating the right amount of protein. I didn't know I needed 1.6, but I've been getting it anyway. And I can tell you, I'm doing personal best in the gym at 63 years age. That's incredible, right? Most guys are peaking in their 20s and 30s. But I'm here to tell you, you can make a difference in your own life with the amount of high quality protein you eat and with working out in the gym. Again, talk to your doctor or healthcare professional. I'm not giving you any medical advice. I'm giving you anecdotal advice that I caught on other podcasts from guys like me who are really smart and are certified in this area and talking. So the second thing is this: muscle is medicine. We know that as you age, having lots of strong muscle will help you stay healthier in your immune system. Part of your immune system is your musculature. So that's why you get these farmers who they got grips like a gorilla. The guy's got a hand like a hammer, right? Or carpenters or stuff. People that use their body their whole life and they use their body every day physically and they're really strong. They can smoke a cigarette and eat bacon for breakfast, cigarette and bacon for breakfast, a cup of coffee, and they live to 90s. Why? Because they're using their body so much and they have so much muscle mass, right? So even if you've lost some muscle, you can regain it. Now, here's another tip. If you're in your 20s and 30s, you want to build the muscle now because you get to a level here. If you build from here to here with musculature and strength, you'll keep it easier along your life than if you wait till you're in your 60s and try climbing that hill, right? Because it's harder to build it the older you get. You can still build it, but it's harder to build. So you want to avoid that sarcopenia. You want to avoid that wasting away, that frailty, right? That weakness that you see older people get. My dad died at 94 until he was 93, and when he got cancer, he had a grip like a gorilla. Why? Because he worked with stone and with concrete and other heavy things, and he was working well into his 80s with heavy things. The guy had a grip. I mean, it wasn't until his last year of life that my grip was stronger than his because he used his body all the time. And he was like a star athlete in high school. So he built that muscle early and kept it his whole life by working with heavy things, right? In fact, he said to me one time, he said, you shouldn't go to the gym. Just go get a job where you have to move heavy things. And I was like, well, you're right, but I already have a job, so I'm going to go to the gym. Anyway, go to the gym, get the right amount of protein, talk to your doctor. That will help offset sarcopenia so you're not weak when you're in your 70s and 80s and 90s. The next thing is that osteoporosis, the wasting away of bone, right? So oftentimes when they're older, people get problems with their bones and their vertebrae and everything else because they have just eaten incorrectly. They've drained the calcium out of their body and they haven't used their body, their muscles, because your muscle is what keeps your bones strong. So if you're using all your muscles, your full body, you're keeping those bones strong, but you've also got to take the right supplementation, eat the right food, and have nutrition. Now, I'm not an expert in that. I just know that it works because I've read enough and listened to enough about it, but I'm not an expert in telling anybody how to do it. You should go out and find that out for yourself. But fundamentally, you can offset sarcopenia and osteoporosis with exercise and strength training, running, walking, cycling, working out, lifting heavy things with the right diet and nutrition. All the way up into your 90s, you can build muscle. And I just want to mention this one thing. The fact that you can build your strength and build your muscle and stay strong at any age is important because what you don't want to do is you want to have what's called health span, not just lifespan. Lifespan says, I lived until, let's just say 90. But in there, you can have a whole decade in your 80s where you're sick and frail. That would suck. Instead, what you want to do is you want to get your metabolism and your strength and your musculature up and keep it up here so that you don't spend your 80s down here bumping along the bottom of health and having all kinds of sicknesses and frailty and everything else. Who wants to spend like the last 10 years of their life in a wheelchair? Nobody. Don't do it, right? Some people it happens, they get a stroke or some other thing. That happens, you can't control that. But fundamentally, if you're strong, if you're fit, if you're using your body, if you're healthy, if you have muscle mass, you're eating a good diet, taking the right nutrition, you're going to be a lot healthier for a lot longer. And your last years will be your golden years rather than just sort of like your, oh God, this is terrible years, right? You don't want that. Now, the last, I mentioned sarcopenia, muscle loss, osteoporosis, bone loss. The next is dementia. That's when your brain just basically stops functioning and has all sorts of problems. You lose your memory, you lose capacity. It's a terrible thing. The brain can shrink. There's a number of things that do that, right? So smoking cigarettes and alcohol increases, early onset dementia for people, for elderly, right? So stop smoking. If you want to stop smoking, we have a great program. Put a link down below. It's called Stop Smoking Forever. It works. It's amazing. And then, of course, if you need to stop drinking or lower your drinking down to just a couple of drinks a week, there is no safe limit of alcohol, by the way. And if you're going to drink, just limit it to a couple of drinks a week, 2, 3 maybe. I don't know. That's what they say. But there are people who are drinking like 3 or 4 drinks a day. You're going to end up destroying your brain by the time you're in your late 70s. And so you'll have probably some form of dementia into your 80s and 90s if you're drinking that much, right? Because alcohol eventually destroys the brain, right? So do cigarettes. Cigarettes eventually helps destroy the brain and causes all sorts of like 19 cancers, right? So you don't want to do that. So you have a tremendous amount of capacity to chart the course of your own health. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is there's a number of little micro issues, and they're actually really big, but I call them micro issues, that are going to make a big difference for you, right? They're little things that make a big difference. For example, 8 hours of deep, restful sleep, massively good. Sleep and muscle are the 2 biggest forms of medicine your body has to support your immune system. So you need those 8 hours, 7 to 9, but 8 hours of sleep on average, really deep, quiet, restful sleep, right? We'll talk more about that another time. Again, avoid alcohol and tobacco and vaping and drugs because over the time, they're going to really hurt your brain. It's going to cause you a lot of problems, right? Then diet and nutrition. Eat Go to the farmer's market, eat healthy food, right? Get as healthy a food, fresh, natural, organic food as you can. And I would make sure that the least processed is the best for you. Someone once told me, in an American grocery store, you go in, you immediately go to the right or the left, and you go around the outside because that's where all the food is. Everything else inside in the center is processed. So up and down the aisles is almost all processed food. So if you can eat just the stuff around the edge of the store, you're going to be a lot healthier, right? And next is the last little micro thing is deep and meaningful relationships, spirituality, having a purpose in life. Those little things are huge. They make a massive difference for your brain over time. Using your muscle keeps it strong and healthy. Using your brain keeps it strong and healthy. What do we use our brains for? Thinking, relating, having friendships, talking with people, talking about all the things in life, right? The big three, right? People, ideas, things and stuff and events. Talk about those things. Be present with your friends and family. Stop being a receiver of information and start getting out there and talking about people. So when you watch this podcast, go talk to your friends and family about what you learned here. Share it with them. Ask them what they think. And then go talk to your doctor. Talk to a fitness coach and a health nutritionist and get the best lifestyle you can now. Take the best care of this vessel, this body that you can, so that you can avoid the healthcare system and all the different things that come with that. So you can avoid all those terrible diseases, especially sarcopenia, osteoporosis, and dementia, and cancer, of course. And so you can live a happy, wonderful, long life. That's what I want for you. So if you like this video, like, subscribe, leave a note down below of any health tip you have that's rational and reasonable. Like don't write like, I'm going to eat frogs at midnight on Halloween. Don't do that. So just leave your best health tip down there for people. Let's share this stuff. Let's get this conversation going. I want to see what you have to say down below. We'll see you next time.